and Brian. We've made it to the Guilford Courthouse National Battlefield Park just outside of Greensboro, North Carolina to do an explore. Welcome to come along. Today's explore begins at nearby Toombs Historic Park. This was once a 150-acre farm owned by Joseph and Hannah Hoskins, and it's where the Guilford Courthouse battle began, where the British Army formed up their battle line and commenced attacking the American force several hundred yards east. Separating the two forces was an open farm field. Reading from the plaque, British General Lord Cornwallis placed his troops on both sides of the new Garden Road below the fields of Joseph Hoskins' farmstead. Ahead of them, the North Carolina militia, drawn up behind a fence line, was supported by two cannon in the middle of the road. The British artillery quickly positioned three cannons and began exchanging fire with the American artillery. The British infantry formed a line of battle across the road, then advanced across Hoskins' muddy fields. At 150 yards, the Americans opened fire with scattered volleys. Though staggered by this fire, the British regrouped, stepped over their dead, and continued to advance. At about 50 yards, they halted and fired their own volley, then charged with bayonets. Time has taken all structures from the time of the battle, and what we see today was either moved here or constructed here to help give you a feel of what the farm and life was like at the time of the battle. A nice example of an 18th century home. This is the cookhouse, or kitchen. Typical of the time, it was separated from the house. A very rustic-looking barn, very much like what one would expect to see on a 1780s farm. I've moved a quarter-mile up the road to the National Park, and I'm going to start at the Visitor Center. The museum is excellent, with a large and wide variety of artifacts. Some have been donated, some have been excavated. As you make your way through the battlefield, you won't find many remnants of the battle. No earthworks, no revetments, fortifications, or the like. Remember, this fight was less than a day long. Plus, it was a running battle as the British continually pushed the Americans back. There simply was no time to dig defensive trenches or build protective earthworks, which left the land nearly untouched by the battle. The year was 1781. Americans had been fighting for independence from England for the past 6 years. The Continental Army and various American militia units periodically engaged in firefights with the British. Cornwallis had been chasing the Continental Army under General Nathan Greene through the backcountry of South Carolina and now North Carolina for 3 months. Sporadically, the Continental Army would bump into the British and a battle would ensue. However, Nathan Greene had a habit of attacking and retreating. While this strategy didn't result in any resounding victories, each encounter bloodied the British Army, reducing its numbers and driving down morale. Not helping the British Army one bit, chasing the American forces through the remote Carolina backcountry, they were outrunning their supply lines, leaving them short on food, further sapping the Army's strength. General Greene received reinforcements in Virginia, swelling his ranks to over 4,000 soldiers. He then moved against the British, finding his opportunity here at the Guilford Courthouse. He prepared for the fight. It was 15 March 1781, a Thursday. He arranged his soldiers in 3 lines, one behind the other, forming 3 defensive obstacles for the British to fight their way through. You're looking east down the New Garden Road as it was aligned during the battle. Here along the road near the Visitor Center is the grave of General Jethro Sumner, a commander in the Continental Army. Further up the New Garden Road, close to the 2nd American line, are several monuments. Brigadier General Edward Stevens was wounded here while making a gallant stand with his Virginia troops. This one honors 3 signers of the Declaration of Independence: William Hooper, Joseph Hughes, and John Penn. This is the Nathaniel Greene Monument, the commander of the Continental Army here at Guilford Courthouse. In front of Greene is Athena, the Greek goddess of war, helping to guide the American commander. I've moved out into the area behind the American first line, which is thickly wooded as it was at the time. The nearby plaque reads, "Among the trees you may find it difficult to stay oriented to the battleground. The combatants face the same problem." Here on the left flank of the American first line, Lieutenant Colonel Henry Lee and his Legion of Cavalry and Infantry had orders to withdraw and support the second line after the first line gave way. Disoriented by the thick woods and chaos of battle, Lee's forces veered southeast and missed the left flank of the second line. This confusion had serious consequences for both armies. A large contingent of Redcoats and Hessians split off from the main British advance and pursued Lee's Legion in a separate running battle. That action fragmented the British attack. The battle plans of both armies came unraveled. Located on the south side of the park, about halfway between the American 2nd and 3rd lines, we find the Winston Monument, honoring Major Joseph Winston, one of the 3 commanders, positioned on the far left of the American first line of defense. It was in this area that the battle plans of both armies began to unravel. I've moved up to the area where the Americans established their 3rd line of defense. This is the area where the now long gone original Guilford Courthouse once stood. The 2 cannon positioned here are where the left American line angled back. The marking on the weapon's second reinforce shows the letter L, which tells me this was produced under Lord John Ligonier, Britain's Master General of the Ordnance, who served from 1758 until 1765. Surrounding his initial is the Latin phrase tria unto in uno, which translates to three united in one, likely referring to England, Ireland, and Scotland. Here on the first reinforce is GR2, which stands for Georgius Rex, referring to King George II. Around the base ring of the cannon is the phrase W. Bowen Ficita 1755. Ficita literally translates to he made, or perhaps made by, which tells me this tube was cast by the William Bowen Foundry in the town of Cowden, County Kent in 1755, which makes these two guns captured British weapons. This is the area where the now gone Guilford Courthouse once stood. Completely erased by time, its precise footprint is not exactly known. The courthouse was just behind the 3rd American Line, which was the last defensive line of the Americans during the battle. By mid-afternoon, the British had pushed forward to this point. General Greene began a retreat from the field, bringing the engagement to an end. The battle was a victory for the British, but it came with a high cost. Cornwallis lost 28% of his army over the course of the day, a casualty rate he simply could not sustain. Once again, Greene's strategy of fight and retreat further bloodied the British army. Any plans the British had of pursuing the Americans evaporated at the end of the day. Instead, Cornwallis broke off the chase and his forces marched to Wilmington, North Carolina. While the battle was a win for the British, critics back in England felt that a few more victories like this one, and Britain would have no army in the colonies. The battle here at Guilford Courthouse was a case of losing the battle but winning the war, because 7 months later, Cornwallis found himself surrounded by the Continental Army in Yorktown, Virginia. The British Army surrendered to General Washington, bringing the war to an end and finally severing British rule over the American colonies, giving birth to the United States of America. That was a fun and very interesting explore of this historical park here in Guilford County, North Carolina. An important part of not only North Carolina history, but also the United States of America. If you made it this far into the video, I thank you for coming along today. Remember, life is a journey. Enjoy the ride, and thanks for watching. I'm Ryan here at the Guilford Courthouse battlefield, just outside of Greene's. Where am I? It's like...
You're doing it again.
Well, I'm Brian here at the Guilford Courthouse battlefield, just outside of Greensboro, South Carolina.